Welcome to today's midnight training session. In a series of topics, we'll be going over one of which the core modules of Midnight, that being the postage module. Today we'll be looking at how to receive a payment for postage from a customer, how to record postage as being used, how to apply funds, and also how to adjust transactions made. We'll also be looking at our postage inventory module, in which you can track the balances of your postage devices, like your stamps, your meters, and your permits. As always, we'll start by looking at our drop-down menu controls within the admin menu that affect the drop-downs in many of the areas in which we'll be touching on for the duration of today. To start things off, we'll take a look at our accounting expandable under the Postage Accounts list. In order to receive a payment to a customer, you do need to have created a postage account and then assigned that postage account to your customer. In here, you can do so by either creating new or modifying existing ones to meet the needs of whatever your general postage accounts would be assigned as. You'll see I have several in here in my general setup, such as ones for FedEx, UPS, DHL, and just a main deposit account. You can set these up so that way the name makes sense in a short version of what the account should be, and the description represents the full name. Additionally, because we do support integration with QuickBooks and QuickBooks Online, these programs, which allow the import of files to communicate and convey information regarding postage payments, can use a communication language set up between the item code and the GLID here, to make sure that if you do extract information from Midnight and import it into QuickBooks, that everything goes to the right place. In order to create a new instance, you can fill out your information for a new account here in the bottom dark gray row. To make sure that it's left as active, you can click the Save button to commit it and add it to your list of available options. Alternatively, if you need to edit one of your rows, you can click the Edit button here and change information for the account by, say, modifying the info within the GLID or the description, or by simply deactivating it to remove it from your available drop-down lists. Clicking the Save Disk button here commits the changes that you make, and clicking the Cancel button here cancels any of the changes that you just made. Finally, you can use the search filter at the top. This search filter allows you to change what you can see, for instance, your active versus your inactive accounts. And you'll see that as we peruse the admin areas of Midnight, this is a common trend for a lot of the controls that you'll see. I won't be going over this for all of the areas, but if you do see a setup that looks like this, assume that the behavior is the same. Moving on down, we have postage types. In here, when receiving funds, you can classify them with transactional GLIDs and item codes, as well as a simple name and description. So that way you can understand what your transactions are as you're marking them within the system. Many of which that you see in here are standards, and these are not ones that can necessarily be removed from the system. You can make simple edits to the item code and GLID, but the choices that you see here, such as earmarked, escrow, and transfers, are all static. Under our postage menu, we have many options in which you can populate within an order's postage tab. The most important one, though, is the postage affix. When you're recording postage used on an order, you can select which device the job gets mailed on. And you can list your different permits and meter numbers in here as well, using different criteria, such as different GLIDs, different IMV item codes, or if you have integration with window book, different WB permit numbers, postage affixed data, etc. You can also use this list to add in your different stamp denominations, such as your 25-cent, 34-cent, and 42-cent stamps, etc. Finally, if you live in a region in which postage is taxed, you can mark your postage instance as taxable. This needs to correspond with your tax codes that you apply to the order. When you apply a jurisdiction with taxable information that presents postage tax, then that works in tandem with the postage affixes that are taxable to give you your proper tax calculation. If you don't have a window book to integrate with any of your postage systems, then you don't need to worry about anything. You can just leave these WB columns blank. A few others I'd like to check out include the postage estimate rates, which convey generalized information into your estimates for available selection. We keep this list updated as the USPS updates their postage records, but you can customize the list that's in here, either by adjusting the price or the name. You'll also notice as you scroll down, there are many Z instances in which the postage affixed name or postage rate name begins with the letter Z or several Zs. This indicates previous postage information, that of which has since been marked as outdated. To maintain historical information for estimates going forward, if you were to recopy an old one, the number information such as costing will need to reference at least one pre-existing postage rate, so we don't delete them, but we do mark them with a Z to pass that information to the bottom of any available drop-down lists, just so that way they're extremely difficult to run into. Finally, under here, we have some general blocks such as the postage spoilage, postage status, the post office, and other areas of choice here in the mail selection list that allow you to pick and choose different information within the post data/postage tab within an order. Now let's take a look at a step that may take place before you receive payment from one of your customers. That would be the preparation of a postage prepay invoice or a postage request. If we take a look at one of our orders, we can see as we prepare to include postage into it that the postage and data postage tabs are the two areas in which our core information will be represented. We can either add the individual postage affixes here and then plug in our different quantities and rates. To come up with a postage total, of which will be used in our invoices. Or for simplicity's sake, we can use our data postage tabs, postage value required, to fill out an expected postage amount to present to our customer. If this amount was calculated out from an estimate in which was converted to an order, then this field will be automatically populated from that estimate. Otherwise, it can simply be manually entered in here as need be. Now, when preparing one of our reports, such as a postage prepay invoice, you'll be able to see the amount due, or the expected amount due, as pulled from the data postage tab. The other information here, such as postage affixed, postage due, will reference the fields that you see similarly titled. And the expected quantity references the info tab's expected quantity that you see here. After you've created, dispatched, and received confirmation of payment for the postage prepay invoice to your customer, one would then be expected to record that payment in Midnight before progressing. There's two ways that you can handle this process. You can either do it from within the Postage tab of the order itself, or you can do it within the Tools Postage module, in which you have a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can do with the funds once they're received. Start by taking a look within the Tools Postage module. As you enter this, the default screen that you're brought to is the Receive Payment screen. In here, you can begin by filling out any of your custom information, such as your customer name that you're receiving the funds to, the account that you're tying it to, assuming that they have a deposit account selected, the check number, the amount that comes in with the check, and where you'd like to put it. You can either stick the funds into an escrow account to make them available for any job, or you can earmark the funds, thereby allowing you to pick any orders that are open for that customer to have as reserved funds against that particular job and no others. Just click Save and Close. Your check has been received, and you can immediately add another one if you need to. And this is the fastest way to receive multiple checks into the system, should you have a stack that you need to go through quickly. You don't necessarily have to use this to receive checks and checks only. If you were to mark a payment from a customer paying in a different method, such as by wire funds or simply by cash, you can simply update the check number to convey that that is their method of payment. It is an alphanumeric field, so you can plug in a variety of different classifications or naming conventions to convey the method of payment. The second step would be to receive funds and mark them against a specific job. If we mark the funds as escrow, and we assign those to a specific order here, then the funds will only be available to that specific job and no others. So now that we've posted payments, we can take a look at a job that these funds were received against, in this case, 1690. If I look in our Postage tab, we'll see a Postage Summary section on the right side. This shows me, most importantly, the customer's current escrow balance, as well as if there's any funds that are earmarked against this particular job. You can also see the total amount of postage used, which is calculated by the total of the postage affixed list here. The postage applied, or funds that have already been applied to the job, and the outstanding balance remaining for the completion of the postage that is on the job. You can also see a postage applied to services, indicating that if a customer were to make a payment for the postage and the services for a particular job, that we can track those payments here, noting that the total that this would be referencing for a complete payment would need to reference the total and tax here on the top of the order's header. There's two things we can do from here. We can click the Apply Funds button to take the funds that have already been designated to our customer and to this order and apply them to outstanding payments. Or we can click Receive Payment and receive another check to bolster up the escrow accounts or funds on this particular job for payment. We'll do the latter here and do a massive check payment to indicate that we've just received more funds, giving us a total earmark value of the sum of what we had already earmarked to the order, as well as the new one that we just did. And now if I were to click the Apply Funds button, I can take the amount of funds that I have in my particular payment accounts and designate that to the order in whichever way I need to. The Apply Postage balance here always looks at the outstanding postage total for the order, allowing you to quickly see and make an application of funds towards the outstanding balance for postage. And if you so desire, you can check this checkbox here to apply the leftover funds to the services on your particular order. Once you click Save and Close, then you'll be able to see that the outstanding postage has been paid for in its whole, and the postage applied is updated to indicate that, in this case, the used has been paid for in its entirety. Additionally, we can see that the postage applied to services has been made, showing us the grand total versus the total that's been applied. If I need to fill out additional details for the postage instances or the postage meters and stamps, I can click the Details tab of those affixes, and I can fill out new info in here, such as more details on the location or post office in which the postage stamps and whatnot are being transacted through. I can also fill out more detail on the dates, the permit numbers, etc., to make sure that all my data is updated as it needs to be. And if necessary, this information can communicate in or allow integration with alternative postage software such as WindowBook or BCC. Whether or not you make changes in here, the only requirements to utilize postage are to have postage affixed instances entered in this table, and then to have received at least one or more payments to pull funds from. Now in this case, that we've marked our order as having postage applied, we can take a look at one of our many invoices. And in this case, as we look through the order, we can see a transaction history of where our funds have gone from the checks that we received and applied to the job. This information summarizes in the payment applied cell, which only appears if there is a payment that has been applied on invoices in default. And it subtracts itself from the total balance due, or the sum of total services plus tax plus postage, to give a remaining balance due for you to present to your customer if there is one. Now, postage is a version level field, but payments that can be made across an order are on an order level. By that, what I mean is that you can have a postage tab set up for multiple versions within an order, but you cannot make payments to the specific versions within the order itself. If you do need to make payments in such a way that conveys that a version's worth of data have been paid for, the best thing to do in this case is simply add in text for the notes of the payment that's been received, information for that particular version. Now, if I have several orders I wish to make applications of funds to rather than doing them one at a time, I can instead go into our Tools Postage module and enter the Apply Payments screen. From here, I can select my customer or customers, and I can enter the check that has funds available to it. For instance, this first check here. At this point, I can see a grand total of outstanding funds available to apply towards orders that have not been marked as paid. In this case, we can see that I have 3 jobs in which no payments have been made against. I have an available account of almost $6,000 here. And if I check boxes for the orders, you'll see that I can make payments towards the postage for a particular job. You know that this value can be overwritten. So that way, if you need to change the amount of funds that you're applying, you can pick and choose to mark where your funds are actually being designated towards. Once you're done with that, click the Save and Close button. And then you can re-enter those jobs as needed to actually see the payments that have been applied. Alternatively, if you need to correct a mistake or fix something that has a problem with it for one reason or another, you can enter the Adjustments tab, view the check itself, and make modifications to the rows for the transactions that have been made against any particular order. For instance, here, you can see that we received our $1,020. If this value needs to be different, such as 1,000 even, we can make an adjustment here. Offset that difference into our escrow line. Making sure that our funds available to apply and check amount all equal out. And then click Save and Close to confirm those transactions. This is also a slightly faster way to make multiple transactions among several checks. As within your check itself, you can simply select an order or a series of orders for that customer and quickly apply payments. Do note, though, that if you were to do this in the series of applications, that you always do need to make sure that your check detail total and your check amount equal each other. And the simplest way to ensure that that happens is to constantly track your escrow. So that way you're updating it, so that way it always references the exact amount of funds that you have available for a particular customer. Now, you may need to track and handle your postage inventory, which is a method best used to track the balances on your postage devices. In this process, you would normally record the stamps that you purchase, as well as money that's added to your meters or permits. And there is also an option in our postage inventory system to report your spoilage. In a situation to start, you would probably do something like make a purchase of stamps. And in this process, you go to your admin menu, accounting, postage inventory submenu. The first screen here shows you all of your transactions. any disbursements or adjustments that have been made against your postage devices. Under the quick links in the upper right side of the screen, you can click the Add Disbursement button to have a new form pop up. Very similar to the received check form, you can enter the info from the check that you're using to purchase stamps. In addition, from here, you can fill out the details such as the device in which you're restocking, the vendor that you're making your payment to, and how many it is that you're receiving. We can now see a transaction here that shows the payment for and receive of 10,000 stamps in this case with a given price. And to record spoilage to offset it, you can, under here, select Add Adjustment. And when this comes up, select your device, the quantity that's consumed, an amount, use spoilage type if necessary, and any comments that go along with it. You'll see now we have two transactions, one for the in and one for the out of our particular stamp, so that we can properly track any of our stamp consumption as we proceed. If we need to track this information, we can do so through our reports. Under our postage reports, we can view pretty much all of the information that we just covered. The postage checks received by date range will simply state the checks that have been pulled into the system over a period of time, defaulted to 1 month prior to today, giving us a grand total of funds received. We also have the postage detail by customer report, which shows the transactions of a customer, including any checks that have been received for them, the transactions of funds being applied to postage or service instances across a series of orders, and which account those funds were pulled from. In this case, either my main account or my US Postmaster account. You can do this on a customer by customer level and provide documentation to your customer if need be, or you can just view this data at its whole and look at a grand total balance of funds that you have sitting in escrow currently for the consolidation of all of your customers. We can also take a look at the Postage Inventory report and Postage Inventory Balance Summary report. These will show the transactions that have been made across a series of devices over a period of time. And again, can be adjusted to match the information of a particular device, or do checks just over a series of options over a time that you can adjust to see your grand totals regardless of device. The inventory balance report simply shows a summary of each device. The postage used by date and by date summary reports, as well as the no date, show the postage used on orders, whether or not they have been paid for. This allows you to easily provide a balance sheet to provide to your customer if you need to let them know of, say, 1 month's worth of postage payments that they may need to make in advance, or to catch up with outstanding fees. The used by date versus used by date summary function pretty similarly. The key differences here being that any information that you look at within the used by date shows all of your instances, and the used by date summary simply shows that info on a job by job level, regardless of the postage stamps or meters that are used specifically. The use by no date returns information for jobs that have postage instances applied, but no date applied to those postage affixes. And finally, the Postage Balance Customer Summary Report references the postage module's summary screen, noting that in here, you have the option to toggle zero balance customers if need be, and this report will do it automatically. That covers pretty much everything for postage. Go ahead and wrap everything up and unmute everyone for Q&A.